In the field of embryology, there were a group of Arab students who collected all the matter in the Holy Qur'an dealing with embryology, and they followed the guidance of the Holy Qur'an in Surah Furqan, chapter 25, verse 59, which says, if you are in doubt, ask the person who knows, ask the person who's knowledgeable. So they took all these data given in the Holy Qur'an dealing with embryology and presented it to Professor Keith Moore. Professor Keith Moore is the head and chairman of the Department of Anatomy in the University of Toronto in Canada, and is one of the leading authorities in the world in the field of embryology. When Professor Keith Moore went through the translation of the Quran dealing with embryology, he said that most of the thing which the Quran speaks about embryology is matching with the latest discoveries made in the field of embryology. But there are a couple of things which I cannot say that they are right. Neither can I say that they are wrong, because I myself do not know about it. And one such verse was from Surah Iqra or Surah Alaq, chapter 96, verse number 1 and 2, which says, Iqra bismi rabbikal ladzi khalaq, khalaqal insana min alaq. Read, recite, or proclaim in the name of thy Lord who created the human beings from something which clings, a leech-like substance. So Professor Keith Moore said, I do not know whether the embryo looks like a leech or not. So he went in his laboratory and under a very powerful microscope examined the shape of the early stage of embryo and compared it with a photograph of a leech. And he was astonished at the striking resemblance. And when he was asked about 80 questions on embryology taken from the Holy Quran and Hadith, he said that if you would have asked me all these things 30 years ago, I would not be able to answer more than 50% of this. Because embryology, the development of embryology, is just recently, hardly 30 to 50 years, it's advanced. And Professor Keith Moore, he has written a book, The Developing Human. And in his new edition, the third edition, he has incorporated the new things which he found from the Quran and the Hadith, for which he got an award for the best medical book written in that year by any single author. And when I was doing my MBBS in the first year, we referred to this book, Developing Human by Keith Moore. If you wanted to score high marks in embryology, we referred to the book by Keith Moore. If you wanted to get just passing mark, we referred to Inderbir Singh. But if you wanted to score, we had to refer to the book by Professor Keith Moore. And later on, this book was translated into several languages of the world. Professor Keith Moore said, I have got no objection in accepting that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger of God Almighty, and that the Holy Quran has to be a divine revelation. The Holy Quran says in Surah Tariq, chapter 86, verse number 5 to 7, let now man think from what he's created. He's created from a drop, emitted from a space between the backbone and the ribs. Today we have come to know the genital organs, the testes in the males and the ovaries in the female. In the embryonic age, they develop from a space where the kidney is present today, between the backbone and the 11th and 12th rib. Later on, the testes, they descend through the inguinal colon into the scrotum, and the ovaries in the female to the true pelvis. But in the embryonic age, it's in the space where the Quran speaks about, between the backbone, the spinal column, and the 11th and 12th rib. Even in the adult life, after the genital organs they descend, yet they receive the blood supply, the nerve supply, and the lymphatic drainage from the same space between the spinal column and the 11th and 12th rib. The Holy Quran mentions in Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23, verse number 13, as well as in Surah Al-Hajj, chapter 22, verse number 5, that we have created the human beings from a nutfa. The Arabic word nutfa, that the human beings have been created from nutfa, is mentioned in the Quran no less than 11 times. And the word nutfa is mentioned 12 times. But human beings created from nutfa is mentioned 11 times. The Arabic word nutfa means a minute quantity of liquid. The Holy Quran says in Surah Sajda, chapter 32, verse number 8, that we have created the human beings from a quintessence of liquid. The Arabic word is sulala, meaning a minute quantity or the best part of the whole. And today we have come to know only one sperm actually, it penetrates the ovum. And only one sperm is required to fertilize the ovum out of the tens of millions of sperms which the man ejaculates. Quran refers to it as sulala, the best part of the whole, or nutfa, a minute quantity. The Quran says in Surah Insan, chapter 76, verse number 2, Inna khalaqnal insana min nutfatin amshaj. The Arabic word means nutfatin amshaj, means we have created the human being from a minute quantity of mingled fluids. Nutfatin amshaj, minute quantity of mingled fluid. This can refer to the male and female gametes after they form the zygote. It yet remains a nutfa, a minute quantity of liquid. It can also refer to the spermatic fluid, which contains several secretions from various glands, like the testes, the serofluid, which contains the spermatozoons. It also includes the secretion from the seminal vesicles, the seminal fluids, which is a reservoir of spermatozoons, but does not contain the fertilizing agent. Also, it refers to the secretion of the prostatic glands, which gives the creamy texture and the characteristic odor to the sperm, as well as glands attached to the urinary tract, the Cooper's gland or the Litter's gland, which gives the specific texture of mucus to the sperm. The Quran refers to as nutfatin amshaj, minute quantity of mingled fluid. Male and female gametes surrounded by these fluids, which are responsible for the birth of the human being. The Holy Quran says in Surah Az-Zumar, chapter 39, verse number 6, we have created the human beings in the wombs of their mother, in stages, one after the other, in 3 veils of darkness. Professor Keith Moore said, these 3 veils of darkness refers to the anterior abdominal wall of the mother, the uterine wall, and the amniochorionic membrane. The Quran also speaks about genetics. The Quran says in Surah Najm, chapter 53, verse number 45 and 46, that we have created the human beings and made them into male and female from a minute quantity of liquid which is ejaculated. But naturally, if it's ejaculated, it has to be a male fluid. Quran says it is the male which is responsible for the sex of the child. The Quran repeats this message in Surah Qiyamah, chapter 75, verse number 37 to 10, that we have created the human beings from a minute quantity of sperm and then made it into an alaqa, a leech-like substance, then gave it due proportion, then made it into sex, male and female. The Arabic word, nutfatam, min mani yumna, means a minute quantity of sperm. Quran says a minute quantity of sperm is required for sex of the child. Today's science has come to know that the sex of the child depends upon the 23rd pair of chromosomes. And it is the sperm which is responsible for deciphering the sex of the child. If it's X, it's a female. If it's an XY, it's a male. The Holy Quran says in Surah Az-Zumar, chapter 39, verse number 6, We have created the human beings in the wombs of their mother, in stages, one after the other, in 3 veils of darkness. Professor Keith Moore said, these 3 veils of darkness refers to the anterior abdominal wall of the mother, the uterine wall, and the amniochorionic membrane. The Quran also speaks about genetics. The Quran says in Surah Najm, chapter 53, verse number 45 and 46, that we have created the human beings and made them into male and female from a minute quantity of liquid which is ejaculated. But naturally, if it's ejaculated, it has to be a male fluid. Quran says it is the male which is responsible for the sex of the child. The Quran repeats this message in Surah Qiyamah, chapter 75, verse number 37 to 39, that we have created the human beings from a minute quantity of sperm and then made it into an alaqa, a leech-like substance, then gave it due proportion, then made it into sex, male and female. The Arabic word, nutfatam, min mani yumna, means a minute quantity of sperm. Quran says a minute quantity of sperm is required for sex of the child. Today's science has come to know that the sex of the child depends upon the 23rd pair of chromosomes. And it is the sperm which is responsible for deciphering the sex of the child. If it's X, it's a female. If it's an XY, it's a male. The Quran has mentioned this 1400 years ago. In our society, especially in the Indian society, for reasons known best to them, people prefer having a male child. And suppose the daughter-in-law, if she gives birth to a female child, the mother-in-law normally blames the daughter-in-law. If the mother-in-law has to blame anyone, she should blame the son, not the daughter-in-law, because the Holy Quran and science tells us that it is the male which is responsible for the sex of the child and not the female. The Quran describes the various embryological stages in great detail. In Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23, verse number 12 to 14, it says, we have created the human beings from a quintessence of clay, then made it into a drop, placed it into qararim makin, place of security, then made it into an alaqa, something which clings, a leech-like substance, made that alaqa into mudga, a chewed-like lump, made that mudga into izama, bones, then clothed the izama, bones, with lahm, that is flesh, and then made it into a creature. Blessed is he, the best to create. This verse of the Holy Quran, from 12 to 14 of Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23, describe the embryological stages in great detail. It starts with saying, we have placed the nutfa, the minute quantity, into qararim makin, a place of security. Today embryology tells us that the embryo is protected posteriorly by the backbone and the posterior muscles of the mother, anteriorly by the anterior abdominal wall, by the uterine wall, as well as the amniochorionic membrane. It continues. Then we made it into an alaqa, a leech-like substance, something which clings. The Arabic word alaqa has got 3 meanings. Something which clings, a leech-like substance, as well as blood clot. Alhamdulillah, all 3 meanings are applicable here, because the embryo in the initial stages, it clings to the uterine wall of the mother. It looks like a leech, as confirmed by Professor Keith Moore. It also behaves like a leech. It behaves like a bloodsucker. It derives the blood supply and the nutrition from the mother. And at this stage, if an abortion takes place, the concept is it looks like a blood clot. It looks like a blood clot as well as a leech. So Quran, in one word, it implies 3 meanings which all are applicable. Quran mentions this word alaqa no less than 6 times. Twice in Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23, verse number 12 to 14. Surah Hajj, chapter 22, verse number 5. Surah Ghafir, chapter number 40, verse 67. Surah Qiyamah, chapter 75, verse 38. As well as in Surah Iqra, chapter 96, verse number 2. 6 times it's mentioned. Previously, in the 17th century, people thought that the sperm, it evolved a miniature human being. A miniature human being was present in the head of the sperm, which later on developed into the uterus of the mother as a newborn baby. This was believed by Swammerdam, who proposed the perforation theory. Later on, when they discovered that the ovum is bigger than the sperm, De Graaf and others, they said, it is not the sperm which was a miniature human being, it is the ovum which was a miniature human being. Later on, Maupertuis, in the 18th century, he proposed the biparental theory, that both are responsible, as the Qur'an says. Both the sperm and the ovum is responsible for the birth of the child. Qur'an says, we made that alaka into a mudga. Mudga means chewed like lump, or something tacky which can be put in the mouth. Professor Keith Moore said both these meanings are applicable, because it is something tacky which can be put in the mouth. And later on, he took a plaster seal and bit it between his teeth to look like a mudga, a chewed like lump. And he was astonished that the teeth marks resembled the somites, from which develops the spinal column. The Quran says, we made that mudga into izaman, bones. We clothed the izaman with lahem, flesh and muscles. Allah says then, we create the al-nasha stage. We create a new creature. What does the Quran mean, we have created a new creature? Science today tells us that the embryological stages of development, before this stage, in the rabbit, in the fish, in the other animals, it's similar to that of the human being. It's only at this stage of al-nasha that the particular characteristics of the human beings are seen, the head, the hands, and the feet. So Quran says, we have made a new creature. And ends by saying, blessed is he who's the best to create. Imagine, Quran gives the various embryological stages in great detail. There was the person who put forward an argument. It's nothing new. Maybe some Arab, he opened up the abdomen of a pregnant woman and checked the shapes and wrote in the Quran. He didn't realize that all these stages that the Quran describes, it cannot be observed with a naked human eye. You require a very powerful microscope. When Professor Marshall Johnson was asked to comment on these verses, he is the head of the Department of Anatomy in the Daniel Institute in Sir Thomas Jefferson's Hospital in Philadelphia, USA. He said, it can be possible that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he had a microscope and he observed it. Then he was reminded that microscope was not invented 400 years ago. So Professor Marshall Johnson laughed loudly and he said, yes, I know that. And I've seen the first microscope with my own eyes. It hardly enlarges to 10 times, and the picture is not even clear. Then he said, these stages has to be a divine revelation. He was further asked to comment on the verse of the Quran from Surah Al-Hajj, chapter 22, verse number 5, which says, we have created the human beings from dust, then made it into an alaka, made it into a mudga, partly formed and partly unformed. When you take an incision at this stage and analyze the embryo and cut up the internal organs, you'll find out that the internal organs at this particular stage, some of the organs are formed, while the other organs, they aren't formed. So Professor Marshall Johnson said, if I said that it is a complete creation, I'm only describing those organs which are formed. If I say it's an incomplete creation, I'm only describing those organs which are not formed. There can be no better description than the Holy Quran saying partly formed and partly unformed. Because some organs are formed, the others are not formed. Some cells are differentiated, the others are not differentiated. Professor Keith Moore said that today in embryology, we have got several stages of the embryological development. But it is so difficult to understand it because it has got numerical stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. The Quran bases the stages on shapes and prenatal development, which is far superior and easy than what modern embryology has done today. If the embryologist they describe according to the stage of the Quran. It's far more easier for them to describe and understand than what modern embryology has done, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. The Quran says in Surah Abasa, chapter 80, verse 19 and 20, we have created the human beings from minute quantity, and we have made the passage of birth easy. People normally wondered that how can the birth canal, which hardly admits 3 to 4 fingers, how can a baby come out of it? The bony structure is so rigid, it has got ligaments. How is it possible? Quran says Allah makes the pathway easy. And today we have come to know that how is it possible? Relaxin is being secreted by the ovaries and the placenta, which loosens the ligaments of the pelvic joints and softens the cervix. The uterine contraction that takes place, it pushes the baby downwards in the birth canal. The bag of water which ruptures, it provides a slippery surface for the baby to come out, to slide. And the various movements of the baby while birth facilitates the movement through the irregular pelvic joint. Quran says that Allah makes the pathway easy. People normally wondered that how can the birth canal, which hardly admits 3 to 4 fingers, how can a baby come out of it? The bony structure is so rigid, it has got ligaments. How is it possible? Quran says Allah makes the pathway easy. And today we have come to know that how is it possible? Relaxin is being secreted by the ovaries and the placenta, which loosens the ligaments of the pelvic joints and softens the cervix. The uterine contraction that takes place, it pushes the baby downwards in the birth canal. The bag of water which ruptures, it provides a slippery surface for the baby to come out, to slide. And the various movements of the baby while birth facilitates the movement through the irregular pelvic joint. Quran says that Allah makes the pathway easy. Quran is giving you signs. It's showing you various embryological stages. Who could have described all these stages? They're asking you a question. Will you not then believe? Will you not then believe in the Holy Quran? The Quran says in Surah Sajda, chapter 32, verse number 9, we have given the human beings the faculty of hearing and sight. It's repeated in Surah Insan, chapter 76, verse number 2. We have given the faculty of hearing and sight to the human being. Today we have come to know the first sense to develop is the sense of hearing. Quran says first hearing, then sight. By the 5th month of pregnancy, it's complete the year. Later on in the 7th month of pregnancy, the eye splits open. Imagine, Quran gives the order. First comes hearing, then comes sight. Professor Durga Rao, who's an expert in the field of marine geology, who's teaching in the University of King Abdulaziz in Jeddah, he was asked to give his comments on a verse of the Holy Quran from Surah Nur, chapter 24, verse number 40, which says that the state of the unbeliever is like the depths of darkness in a vast, deep ocean, overwhelmed with waves topped with dark clouds. The depths of darkness, one layered over the other. When a man stretches out his hand, he can hardly see it. Allah gives light to who he wishes. If he does not give light, you cannot see. Professor Durga Rao, he said that this verse of the Holy Quran is not speaking about a normal sea. It's speaking about a deep sea. And today, only with the help of things like submarine, we have come to know the depths of the ocean is dark. Previously, we did not know that, because a man cannot go unaided more than 20 to 30 meters underwater. And if he goes more than 200 meters unaided, he dies. It's today we have come to know, by the instruments that we have, that the depths of ocean is dark. And he said this darkness is due to 2 phenomena. First is due to successive absorption of the color in layers. As we all know, the light has got 7 colors. And we learned in school, for remembering easy, Vibgyor, the colors of the rainbow, Vibgyor. V for violet, I for indigo, B for blue, G for green, Y for yellow, O for orange, red, R for red. Vib Gyor, 7 colors.
Be Jesus because it's contradicted by the New Testament,
Absolutely.
which still states clearly that
I was only sent for the lost sheep of Israel.
Like, for example, like me and Salim growing up in a Christian environment and being exposed to this is so shocking.
Jewish faith and the Christian faith, both of them were expecting the last prophet.
They're all mixing, and they're all friendly together. It really impresses them. It really shocks them sometimes.
That's the original.
That's the original.
Can you read it?
You took a screenshot.
Screenshot.
Last and most important of the prophets. Arabic meaning is glorious or magnificent.
We are on air again. Glad tidings to Huda TV viewers worldwide for the resumption of live broadcasting on NowSat. We are now broadcasting on the advanced DVB S2 system. Tune in using our new frequency, 12188 horizontal on NowSat. Please note, you will need to have a modern HD receiver in order to tune in. Enjoy your favorite edutainment programs with crystal clear resolution. Huda TV, a light in every home.
Professor Durga Rao said that when the light enters the ocean, by the first 15 to 20 meters, the red color is absorbed. And if a man goes underwater about 30 meters deep, and if he bleeds, if he has a wound, he will not be able to see red color of his own blood because red color does not reach there. Later on, 30 to 50 meter absorbs orange. Yellow is absorbed by next 50 to 100 meters. Green by 100 to 200 meters. And blue beyond 200 meters. And violet and indigo much above 200 meters. Therefore, the layers of darkness in the ocean is due to the absorption of light in successive layers. The second reason for these layers, Professor Durga Rao said, is due to barriers, like the clouds. When the sunlight hits the cloud absorbs the light. Therefore, there is darkness below the cloud. Then the light is scattered. After getting scattered, hits at the superficial waves of the ocean. This is the second barrier. The waves reflect the light further, the superficial waves of the ocean. Those light rays which are not reflected, they enter the ocean. Therefore, you have two types of layers in the ocean, the superficial layer and the deep layer. The superficial layer is warm and lit up. The deep layers, they are dark. And this superficial and deep layer of the ocean, it is divided by internal waves. We human beings did not know that even there were internal waves. We only knew of superficial waves. It was only in 1900 that we have come to know that there are even waves deep in the water. They are known as internal waves, which divide the superficial part of the ocean and the deep part of the ocean. Imagine, the Qur'an mentions that. The unbeliever's state is like the depths of darkness in a vast, deep ocean, overwhelmed with waves topped with waves. That means deep waves are there, internal waves are there, topped with superficial waves. And it further continues, topped with dark clouds. The clouds are the barriers, and even the cloud line layers. And when a man stretches out his hand, he can hardly see it. Only if Allah gives light can they see. Even the fish that swim in the deep part of the ocean, they cannot see unless they have their own light with them. They have their own light with them. Even the submarine that goes underwater, it carries its own light, otherwise they cannot see underwater. So when Prophet Durga Rao was asked, how come this is mentioned in the Quran 14 years ago? He said, it's impossible for any human being to mention this verse. This Quran has to be a divine revelation. The Holy Quran says in Surah Qiyamah, chapter 75, verse number 3 and 4. The unbelievers ask that how will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be able to reassemble our bones? Allah says, we can not only reassemble the bones, we can even reconstruct in perfect order the very fingertips. When the unbelievers say, after we are buried, after our bones have got disintegrated, how will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment reassemble our bones? So Allah says, He will not only be able to reassemble the bones, He can even reconstruct your very fingertip in perfect order. It's referring to the fingerprinting method, which was discovered by Sir Francis Gould in 1880. And he said that no two fingerprints of two individuals are equal even in a million people. No wonder the police, the CID, the CIA, the FBI, they use fingerprinting method to identify the culprit. Quran speaks about that 14 years ago. Allah can not only reassemble the bones, He can even reconstruct in perfect order the very fingertips. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking you in Surah Nisa, chapter 4, verse 82, أَفَلَا يَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Do not you consider the Quran with care. Do not you ponder over the Quran with care. That if it had been from anyone besides Allah, there would have been many contradictions. There would have been many discrepancies. Quran is giving you a challenge. Here is the Holy Quran. Try and take out a single discrepancy. Try and take out a single fault in the Holy Quran. It's giving you a challenge, an open challenge. Why don't you analyze the Quran with care? Had it been from anyone besides Allah, there would have been many contradictions. I would like to end my talk by giving the example of Prophet Zakir Naik. Previously, the doctors, they thought that only the brain was responsible for feeling of pain. It's now we have come to know that there are certain receptors in the skin called as pain receptors, which are also responsible for feeling of pain. No wonder, when a patient of burn injury comes to a doctor, he takes a pin and he pricks it in that area. If the patient feels pain, doctor is very happy. It means it's a superficial burn. The pain receptors are intact. If he does not feel pain, it's a deep burn. The pain receptors have been destroyed. The Quran says in Surah Nisa chapter 4, verse number 56, as to those who reject our signs, we shall cast them into the hellfire. And as often as their skins are roasted, we shall give them fresh skins so that they shall feel the pain. Quran says if your skin is roasted, we shall give you fresh skin so that you will feel the pain. Giving an indication there is something in the skin which is responsible for the feeling of pain. Indication to the pain receptors. When Professor Takata Takashan, who is the head of the Department of Anatomy in Chiang Mai University in Thailand, he was given the translation of this verse, and he has spent a lot of time in doing research on pain receptors. He said it's impossible that Quran can mention this. We discovered it recently. How is it possible? He did not agree with it. Later on, after checking with the Holy Quran, after verifying the Holy Quran, he was so impressed that in the 8th Medical Saudi Conference in Riyadh, in the conference, he said the Shahada, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah.
Assalamu alaikum, Zakir bhai. My name is Shakir and I'm a mechanical engineer student. I would like to ask you a question that how can you prove to an atheist scientifically the existence of God?
The brothers pose the question, how can you scientifically prove the existence of God Almighty, the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Especially to an atheist who does not believe in God. The first thing I will do is that I will congratulate that atheist. I'll congratulate him. You know why? If you look around us, he's a Hindu because father is a Hindu. He's a Christian because father is a Christian. Some Muslims are Muslims because their father is a Muslim. This person, though he may be coming from a religious background, he does not believe in the false God which his parents attribute to. So he does not believe in God. I'm congratulating him because he's accepted the first part of the Shahada, the first part of the Islamic creed, La ilaha, there is no God. Now my job is to prove illallah, but Allah, which I shall do inshallah. To the other people, I have to first remove the wrong concept of God and then prove the right concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here half my job is done. He has already said La ilaha. There's no God. Now I have to prove illallah, but Allah, which I shall do inshallah. You ask this atheist that suppose there is an object, an unidentified, maybe a flying object, which no one in the world has seen. No human being in the world knows about this object. If it's brought in front of you, and if you're asked that who will be the first person who will be able to tell you the mechanism of this unidentified object, you have to ask him the question. Who is the first person who will be able to tell you the mechanism of this new object which no one in the world has seen? After thinking for a while, he'll give the answer. The person who will be able to tell you the mechanism, the first person, is the creator of that object. Some may say manufacturer, some may say producer. Whatever they say, don't grapple with the word, accept it. It will be somewhat similar, either creator or producer or manufacturer. But remember what he has told you. Keep it in your mind. Then ask him the next question. How did the universe come into existence? How was it formed? He will tell you by the Big Bang Theory. Tell him the Qur'an mentions in Surah Anbiya, chapter 21, verse number 30, about the Big Bang Theory. Who could have mentioned this in the Qur'an 1400 years ago? So he will tell you, maybe it's a fluke. Don't argue with him. Next part of the question. We did not know that the light of the moon is reflected light. We came to know recently. You ask him, he'll tell you, yes, yes. The light of the moon is reflected light. It's not its own light. When we discovered, he will tell you recently, yesterday, 50 years back, 100 years back, yesterday in science. You tell him, the Qur'an mentions that the light of the moon is reflected light 1400 years ago. Who could have mentioned that? Maybe somebody had a wild guess. Don't argue with him. Continue. We thought the sun was stationary. You ask him, is it stationary? He'll say, no, it's rotating and revolving. When you learn this, he will tell you yesterday, 50 years back, 100 years back. Quran mentions this 1400 years ago. He will hesitate, but may say, maybe some intelligent person wrote it. Don't argue with him. Continue. Don't argue with him. Continue. How was the universe initially? What is celestial matter? He will tell you, it was smoke. How did you come to know? We have got proof, we have got evidence. You tell him, Quran mentioned this 14 years ago. Who could have mentioned that? He will hesitate. Don't wait for response. Continue. Keep on posing question after question. All that I give in the lecture, keep on posing one question after the other. That water cycle, how do we come to know about it? Quran mentioned 14 years ago. About every living thing made from water. Who could have mentioned that? Quran speaks about botany, the male and female. Who could have mentioned that? Pose one after the other and ask the question, who could have written that? Then you tell him that there's a theory known as theory of probability. That if you have two choices, out of which one is right, the chances that you will make the correct choice just at random is 1 in 2. For example, if I toss a coin, it can either be heads or tails. The chances that I'll be right will be 1 in 2. If I toss it twice, the chances that I'll be right both the times will be 1 upon 2 multiplied by 1 upon 2, that is 1 upon 4, 25% chance. If I toss it thrice, chances I'll be right all 3 times, 1 upon 2 multiplied by 1 upon 2 multiplied by 1 upon 2, it's 1 upon 8, 12.5%. A dice has got 6 sides. If I throw a dice, the chances that at random I'll be correct is 1 upon 6. If I throw it twice, the chances that both the time I'll be right will be 1 upon 6 by 1 upon 6, 1 upon 36. This is called as theory of probability. If I throw the dice twice and then toss a coin, all 3 being right will be 1 upon 6 by 1 upon 6 by 1 upon 2 is 1 upon 72. So you ask him, the chances may be, if you ask, what is the shape of the earth? There are various shapes. Some may say it is flat, some may say it's triangular, some may say it is hexagonal, some may say pentagonal, some may say heptagonal, some may say square. Say there can be 10 shapes. Some may say it is round, it is spherical. The chances that if anyone makes a wild guess, it being correct is 1 upon 10. The light of the moon, it can either be its own light or it can be reflected light. The chances that you make a wild guess and it being correct will be 1 upon 2. The chances that both shape of the earth and light of the moon being reflected light, both being correct, if you make a wild guess, it will be 1 upon 10 multiplied by 1 upon 2, it is 1 upon 20. What can the living creatures be made of? Some may say sand, some may say stone, some may say aluminium, some may say gold, say 1,000 materials you can name. Some may say water, some may say silver, 1,000 materials. The chances that you make a wild guess and one of them being right, according to mathematics, is 1 upon 1,000. The chances that all 3 being correct, the earth is spherical, light of the moon is reflected light, and every living creature created from water is correct, will be 1 upon 10 multiplied by 1 upon 2 multiplied by 1 upon 1,000. Answer comes to 1 upon 20,000 or 0.005%. Quran speaks about scientific science more than 1,000 verses. In 3 verses, the answer comes to 0.05%. If you apply probability theory to all this being at random chance, it will come to 0, negligible. And in maths, anything 1 in 10 raised to 50, it's equal to 0. So you ask your atheist friend, who could have written this? The only answer he can give you is this first answer, the creator, the manufacturer, the person who has produced it. That's the only answer, there's no other answer. What science is saying today is they are not eliminating God. They are eliminating models of God. La ilaha illallah. They are not eliminating God, but models of God. The sister posed a question that the Quran mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the human beings. Does science agree with it? And Quran says in several places, including the last verse of the embryological stages, that is Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23, verse 14, that Allah is the best to create. Can we prove it scientifically that Allah is the creator? Quran gives the answer. Quran gives the answer in Surah Tur, chapter 52, verse number 35. It poses a question that were you created from nothing? See, the Arabic word used for creator in all the verses of the Quran is khaliq. It is derived from the Arabic word khalaqa. Arabic word khalaqa has got 4 meanings. One meaning is to create something from nothing without any previous example. That's only possible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second meaning of khalaqa is to create something new from pre-existing material. The third meaning is of khalaqa, programming or planning. And the last meaning is to make smooth. So Quran poses a question in Surah Tur, chapter 52, verse 35, that were you created from nothing? But naturally the answer is negative, no. Human beings aren't created from nothing. They pose the next question. Were you the creators or we the creators? We know very well that man cannot create another man. If he could do that, then the moment he died, he would have created himself back. If his relatives would have died, he would have brought them back to life. Human beings can't even create a living creature such as fly, live outside human being. Neither can you attribute the organs of the body, say the reproductive organs, like testes or ovaries, that they are the cause for a creation. Because if you say that the testes the uterus, etc., are the cause, then you have to include your ancestors, their reproductive system, their ancestors, all are responsible. So the answer is negative. Quran poses the next question in Surah Waqia, chapter 56, verse number 58 and 59, that do you not look at the sperm you have emitted? Were you the creator or we the creator? And but natural, all these questions that Quran poses, the answer is negative. Some people can say it's by chance. By chance you were created. They say nature. Natural thing. It happened by chance. Let's analyze scientifically whether the human beings can be created by chance. The protein molecule is a very important structure of the living cell. Very important part in the living structure of the cell. The protein molecule consists of 5 elements: the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and sulfur. And there are tens and thousands of atoms required to make one molecule. One atom has 5 elements: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and sulfur. There are tens of thousands of atoms which make one protein molecule. And there are approximately 92 free elements. The chances that out of these 92, the 5 will form an atom, and these atoms will form tens and thousands of atoms to form one protein molecule, was calculated by Frank Alien. And he said the chances are 1 in 10 raised to 160. What is the meaning of 1 in 10 raised to 160? If I say 1 in 10 raised to 2, 10 raised to 2 means 100, 2 zeros. 1 in 100, chances 1%. If I say 1 in 10 raised to 3, it means 1 in 1,000. That's 0.1%. If I say 1 in 10 raised to 4, it means 1 in 10,000. Means 0.01%. So when the calculation was made, 1 in 10 raised to 160, it means 0.00000, 157 zeros, then 1. And mathematics tells anything 1 in raised to 10 raised to 50, it's counted as 0. Furthermore, this is talking about one molecule, and the substance required to form this one molecule of protein was calculated by another person, Charles Guy, that it will require millions of times of substance as huge as our galaxies. Millions of galaxies will require to form this one molecule of protein. And the time was calculated by Charles Guy. The time taken for this protein molecule to be formed will be 10 raised to 263 years. You know what is that? 1000000, 263 zeros it will take to form one protein molecule. And do you know there are how many protein molecules in one cell? And do you know how many other molecules are in the cell? And how many cells are there in the human being? There are more than 6 billion molecules when a child is born. That's what doctors tell us today. 6 billion. One more protein molecule takes 1 in 10 raised to 160 chances. It is to 263 years. Million for one baby, imagine. And how many women are pregnant? There are millions of women pregnant at a time. And it takes only 9 months. The chances science tells us is 0, 0, 0. No chance at all. These things cannot chance. They have to be programmed by someone. Science tells us there has to be someone, some supernatural force. Therefore, science, as I said earlier, is not eliminating God, it is eliminating models of God. La ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ashfaq. I'm a student. My question is, Quran in several places has mentioned that the heavens were created in 6 days. But in Surah Fussilat, it says the heaven and the earth was created in 8 days. Isn't this a contradiction? And the same verse also says that the earth was created in 6 days and then later on the heaven in 2 days. This is against the Big Bang theory, that the heavens and earth were created.
Well, that posed a very important question. The Qur'an says the heavens and the earth were created in 6 days. When Surah Fussilat it says 8 days. Isn't there contradiction? And also contradiction with the Big Bang Theory. I do agree with you, brother. The Qur'an says in several places that the heavens and the earth were created in 6 days. In several places. In Surah Araf, chapter 7, verse number 54. In Surah Yunus, chapter 10, verse number 3. In Surah Hud, chapter 11, verse number 7. In Surah Furqan, chapter 25, verse number 59. In Surah Sajda, chapter 32, verse number 4. In Surah Hadith, chapter 57, verse number 4. In several places, the Quran says the heavens and the earth were created in 6 days. It's not the earthly days. It is ayams, very long periods, which scientists have got no objection to. And I also agree with you that the Quran does speak about the creation of the heavens and the earth in Surah Fussilat. The verse you are referring to, brother, is verses 9 to 12, which says that, do you not believe in the one who has created the earth in 2 days? And do you join equals with him? Do you join partners with him, who is the Lord of the worlds? Verse number 10 says, he has set on the earth mountains standing firm and given due nourishment on the earth in 4 days. Verse number 11 says, moreover, in his design he comprehended the sky when it was smoke. And he said to it and the earth, come ye together willingly or unwillingly? And they said, we come together in willing obedience. This he did in 2 days. So if you read it just without thinking, 2 plus 4 plus 2 is 8 days. Quran gives the answer in the starting of the verse, that it says that all those who will take out this fault, they are equal to those people who will join partners to God. Means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that there will be people who will take out fault in the Quran in this verse. They will be the mushriks. And today, this verse is commonly used by the Christian missionaries against the Muslims. If you go around, I've been traveling the world, this question was posed to me even there. The Christian missionaries, they pose this question. Quran says, it predicts that people will ask about this question. And these people will be those who associate partners with God. Let's analyze. The first 2 verses, that is Surah Fussilat, chapter 41, verse 9 and 10, says that the earth was created in 2 days. And then mountains were set on it. And nourishment was given in due proportion in 4 days. So it says, 2 days the earth was formed, mountains were set on it afterwards. In 4 days, total comes to 6 days. Then verse number 11 starts with the Arabic word summa. Now the Arabic word summa can be translated in 3 different ways. One is then, one is moreover, and the other is simultaneously. I do know that many translations have translated the Arabic word summa as then. If you translate summa as then there is a contradiction. It says then the heavens were made in 2 days. That means 2 plus 4 plus 2 is equal to 8 days. But the exact translation should be, summa should be translated as moreover or simultaneously. And Abdullah Yusuf Ali, alhamdulillah, in this place has translated summa correctly as moreover. So if you translate summa as moreover or simultaneously, it will mean that when the earth and the mountains were created in 6 days, simultaneously the heavens were created in 2 days. For example, suppose a builder, he gives in his brochure that I have constructed a 10-story building along with its surrounding and compound wall in 6 months. When a person wants to buy a flat in that building, he goes to the builder and he asks for more detail. So the builder says, it took me 2 months to make the basement of the building and another 4 months to make the 10-story. And while I was building the basement and the story, I simultaneously built the compound wall and the surrounding in 2 months. It's possible. So then he's not contradicting. Total comes to, yes, 6 months. So similarly, when Surah Fussilat chapter 41 verse number 9 to 12, it says that while the earth was created along with the mountains in 6 days, simultaneously the heavens was created in 2 days. There's no contradiction. And similarly, if you take then, it contradicts with science. Because earth was created first, then were created the mountains. It's contradicting. Similarly, Quran speaks in Surah Baqarah chapter 2, verse 29, that Allah made the earth, summa the heavens. But unfortunately here, Abdul Yusuf Ali has translated summa wrongly as then. In verse 29 of Surah Baqarah chapter 2, he translates summa as then. Allah created the earth and then the heaven. Then there's a contradiction. Even here, summa should be translated as moreover or simultaneously. If it's translated simultaneously, then it's not a contradiction, because the Big Bang theory tells us that the earth and the heavens were created simultaneously. No wonder in the Quran says in many places, we created the heavens and the earth. In other places it says, we created the earth and the heavens. Giving evidence to the verse of the Quran of Surah Al-Anbiya chapter 21 verse number 30, it says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتْ رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا. That do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together and we clove them asunder.